On the night of July 7th, 2016, a protest against police brutality in downtown Dallas took a deadly turn when a lone gunman ambushed law enforcement officers, killing 5 and injuring 9 others. The shooter, 25-year-old Micah Xavier Johnson, was an American veteran who had no prior criminal history. But beneath the surface, Johnson harbored deep resentment toward police officers and a violent desire for revenge. His actions that night shocked the nation. The ambush was calculated, and his arsenal of weapons showed that he had been preparing for this moment. He was ultimately killed by police in a way that was unprecedented, through the detonation of an explosive device delivered by a robotic drone. But who was Micah Xavier Johnson? What led him down this path? And how did his past, particularly his military service and the allegations of sexual harassment against him, shape the man who would go on to commit one of the deadliest attacks on law enforcement in American history? This is Strawberry Inc., and today we're diving into the story of Micah Xavier Johnson. Micah was born on July 2nd, 1991 in Mesquite, Texas. By all accounts, he was quiet and reserved. He lived with his mother, Delphine Johnson, and his stepfather. He had no known history of violence, criminal activity, or extremist behavior growing up. In fact, his mother would later say that he was always the happiest person in the room. But something changed in Johnson after he enlisted in the Army Reserve in 2009. He trained as a carpentry and masonry specialist but never saw combat. Instead, he was deployed to Afghanistan in late 2013, serving as an engineer. Those who served alongside him described him as distant, socially awkward, and struggling to fit in. And then, during his deployment, an incident occurred that would later alter the course of his life. While stationed in Afghanistan, Johnson was accused of sexually harassing a female soldier. She reported that he had been acting inappropriately toward her, making unwanted advances and refusing to take no for an answer. According to her complaint, Johnson's behavior made her feel unsafe. Military officials took the allegations seriously. They launched an investigation, and as a result, Micah Johnson was sent back to the U.S. in 2014. His fellow soldiers recalled that his return was abrupt and that he seemed embarrassed by the situation. Johnson was as well found with his accuser's panties. The Army initiated proceedings to discharge him under other than honorable conditions, but the process was never fully completed. Instead, he was given a general discharge, which is less severe than a dishonorable discharge, but still indicated misconduct. He left the military in April 2015, seemingly disgraced and directionless. For someone like Micah, who had hoped to make a career in the military, this was a significant blow. He returned to Texas and moved in with his mother. He began to isolate himself and spent much of his time playing military-style video games, practicing shooting techniques, and consuming extremist content online. After leaving the military, Micah developed a growing hatred for law enforcement. He became deeply affected by the rising tensions between police officers and the Black community in the U.S. Cases like the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile in the summer of 2016 only intensified his anger. He started following radical Black nationalist groups on social media and expressed a desire for violent retribution against police. According to reports, Johnson told friends and family that he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. His mother would later say that something inside him snapped. Micah Johnson began stockpiling weapons, including an SKS semi-automatic rifle. He trained for combat and studied guerrilla warfare tactics, preparing for what he saw as an inevitable confrontation. On July 7, 2016, a peaceful protest was taking place in downtown Dallas in response to the recent police shootings of black men. Johnson arrived armed and ready to execute his plan. As the protest was winding down, he opened fire, ambushing police officers from elevated positions and taking advantage of the chaos. In a coordinated attack, he moved strategically through downtown, targeting officers and civilians. By the end of the attack, 5 officers were dead and 9 others wounded. 2 civilians were also injured. Micah was heavily armed and had enough ammunition to continue his rampage, but police were able to corner him inside a building. For hours, officers tried to negotiate with him, but he refused to surrender. He told police that he was angry about them, about their brutality, and wanted to kill white officers as revenge. When negotiations failed, the Dallas Police Department made a historic decision. They used a bomb disposal robot to deliver an explosive device, killing Johnson instantly. The shooting left 5 Dallas police officers dead, 9 of them injured and 2 civilians injured. Johnson's attack shocked the country. While some saw it as an act of revenge for police violence, most viewed it as an unjustified massacre. Black Lives Matter quickly distanced itself from Johnson's actions, emphasizing that their movement was about justice, not violence. Authorities later found extremist materials in his home, including writings praising violent black nationalist groups. His attack prompted national debates about policing, race relations, and how the U.S. handles homegrown radicalization. His family expressed disbelief at what he had done. His mother suggested that the military had changed him, and some experts pointed to his discharge as a major turning point in his life. Had he not been accused of sexual harassment and forced out of the military, would he have taken a different path? It's impossible to know. What we do know is that his attack left 5 officers dead, their families devastated, and a nation even more divided on issues of race and policing. Micah Xavier Johnson's story is a chilling reminder of how resentment, isolation, and extremism can push someone toward an irreversible path of violence. His background in the military, his alleged misconduct, and his growing hatred for police all contributed to his final, deadly act. The dead officers were taken to the Dallas County Coroner's Office after being pronounced dead at Baylor University Medical Center, and afterwards released to their care and funeral homes. Micah was pronounced dead at the scene and immediately taken to this coroner's office. 7 of the injured officers were treated at the Parkland Memorial Hospital. The remaining 2 injured officers were also taken to the Baylor University Medical Center, and the 2 injured civilians to the Halston Valley Medical Center. After being treated, the 11 injured ones were released from their hospitals and sent home to continue recovering. The 5 deceased police officers were identified as Michael Smith, Michael Kroll, Patrick Zamaripa, Brent Thompson, and Lauren Aarons. The funerals of 3 officers were held in different locations on July 13, 2016. Brent Thompson's in that morning at a church known as the Potter's House of Dallas. Michael Smith's at the same time at the Wrestling Funeral Home, and Lauren Aarons also at the Wrestling Funeral Home, but later on in the day. Smith and Aarons were both buried at the Wrestling Memorial Park after their funerals. Then Thompson was buried at his family's farm in East Texas. Their visitations were held the day before. their July 13th masses, which were held at the Westland Funeral Home at different times throughout the day. Michael Cron's funeral was held on July 18th at the Harry J. Will Funeral Home in Redford Township, Michigan. The following day, streets away from the home, his mass was held at the St. Robert Bellarmine Catholic Church, and he was afterwards buried at the Holy Sepulchre Catholic Cemetery in Southfield, Michigan. On July 15th, the funeral visitation for Patrick Zamaripa was held by the Greenwood Funeral Home at the Wilkerson Grains Athletic Center in Fort Worth, Texas. His mass the following day at the same place, and afterwards, he was buried at the Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery in Dallas. Lastly, the funeral visitation for Micah Xavier Johnson was held on July 21st at the Maggie Funeral Home in Mississippi. Then the following day, his mass was held at the Maggie, Mississippi Overflow Church. He was afterwards buried at the Maggie Cemetery. As we continue to discuss police brutality and racial injustice in America, we have to ask, how do we prevent people like Micah Johnson from reaching the point of no return? And how do we ensure that justice doesn't turn into revenge? This has been Strawberry Inc. I'm Santiago. Stay safe, stay aware, and have a good day.